The following presentation is a gift from the team at Streamline Publishing, publishers of Fine Art Connoisseur, Plein Air Magazine, and weekly newsletters Fine Art Today, Realism Today, Plein Air Today, and American Watercolor, and events, the Plein Air Convention and the Figurative Art Convention. We offer over 400 different art instruction tutorials and ultra high-quality video by the world's leading artists. If you like what you see, help us support our artists and our team with your purchase. Each video aired has a special discount code for today only in the comments section with a link to the video offered. And to see everything we do, or if you want to receive notice of new releases, new products, and new events for artists, simply click the other link, which says, "See everything we do." Thank you.
Hi there, I'm Eric Rhodes, publisher and founder of Fine Art Connoisseur and Plein Air Magazine. Thank you for tuning in. We're here every day at 3 p.m. Eastern, and the goal is to keep you focused on art during these crazy times. Today we have a really interesting and very valuable one. It's called Unlimited Color with a Limited Palette. It's from the great John Pototschnik.
Hi, I'm John Pototschnik. I appreciate you very much for joining me on this video, and it's going to be an exciting video. I'm more than delighted to be able to do this because it is all about color, and I know from experience and 30 years of teaching that students really struggle with this whole idea of color. Generally, they have way too many colors on their palette and don't really use them all or know how to use them. What this video is going to be about is using a limited palette. And when I talk about limited palette, I'm talking about just 3 primary colors. That's not what you're always necessarily going to stay with, but that will really help you to understand color, to understand how to mix it, and to end up with paintings that are really harmonious and beautiful. I look forward to you following me all the way through this instruction that I'm going to give on this video, because I know it's going to benefit you in tremendous ways. It has really changed, to be honest, it has really changed the work of many of my students, because they cut from using multiple colors down to just a few, and immediately they saw improvement in their work. And I know if you try the principles and the teaching that I'm going to give you in this video, you are going to be really pleased with the results. So we're going to talk about the color wheel here and prepare you for that. All right, I'd like to introduce you to the color wheel and spend some time talking about that. Let's start with color first, because it has 3 qualities to it. And as you can see here, the first is hue, which is, you know, when I started painting and actually didn't know much about this stuff at all, most, at least in my case, and I think for a lot of young artists, the thing they think about when they think of color is the hue part. Yes, we can identify the hue, and so when we're painting, we think, okay, I need green in this area, and I need blue in that area, or I need violet in that area, and we don't think that color also has other qualities to it. So it's not only the identification of the color, which is the hue, in other words, it has a name to it, red, blue, yellow, so forth, but it also, another important quality of color is the intensity of the color. And what do I mean by intensity? I mean the purity of it. And here on this chart here, I showed different intensities. The purest color is cadmium red right here in the center. With white added to it, you can see what happens as soon as white is added. Because white is cold, it cools the color down immediately, so it changes the intensity of it. You can see how less intense it is. And then over here, I added just a little bit of ivory black. And so you can see it's dulled. So the most intense of these three is the middle one, Cadmium Red, because it's pure and it's right out of the tube and it's as rich as you can get that. As intense, as pure as you can get it. But that does not mean this color could not be the most intense color. It all depends what the context of the painting is. The same with this. This may be the most intense, the purest color in a particular painting that you might want to paint. But just for our demonstration purposes, I want to show these three, all variations of just Cad Red, white added and a little bit of black added, and you can see how less intense those are relative to this. When we're talking about painting, we're always talking about relativity, what it relates to, what it's next to, and that will greatly affect how the overall result looks. The third quality, which I went through 4 years of college, did not know this at all. I was never taught this in college. It was only when I went to Art Center College in LA for a short time that I learned that color has a value to it. This is the one I think that students struggle with. All of my students struggle with this at certain points. These colors right here, the green, the violet, and the red, these are the exact values of those colors. If you were to put gray this down, neutralize that, or desaturate that color, these colors would match those values. And that's hard to see as an artist because we're looking at the brightness of these and saying, man, that does not look like this at all. They don't look comparable as far as the value goes. But it is the value that really establishes the mood of a painting. It's the color that supports it and enhances it. So these three parts of color, these three identifying qualities of color are all really important. I would say this is the one people have the hardest time with. And so because they don't understand that color has value to it, in other words, it falls somewhere on the gray scale, all the way from white all the way to black. Every color on our palette, every tube color that's manufactured out there falls somewhere on a gray scale. So that's real important to know. So for instance, if you're painting a landscape or whatever, and you have some trees, you would be surprised because I see a lot of students that will make the light on the trees, lime green or something. But a good way to discern value relationships when you're studying landscape or any other scene for that matter, whether you're a figurative painter or a cityscape painter or still life painter, whatever, is to slightly close your eyes, squint down just slightly. It eliminates the detail and you can see those value relationships. So you would find out looking at a row of trees that the light on the trees is not near, most often, in almost every situation, not near as light as the ground plane green, if we're just talking about greens. So those value relationships are critically important. This stage, if you can grasp this, it will really make your color mean something, because color just by itself is not sufficient. Color takes your value structure, your basic foundational structure that you created in a painting, and it raises it up. That's what color does. And so understanding these three things is super important. All right, when we're talking about the color wheel, I want to explain this to you, what exactly we're talking about. This is very typical of a standard color wheel. It's 12 spokes to it, 12 colors, and it's divided into the primaries are the division points. So you have the yellow, the blue, and the red. They are the primaries. Why are they called primaries? Because you can't mix them. They're just out of the tube. But all these other colors, the complements, and I'll explain what those are, the complements and the tertiary colors can all be mixed from those three. That's why they are called primaries. About everything that I'm going to speak about in this video, we're going to be using this color wheel. Almost all of my demos are going to be using this color wheel. I need to press upon you, though, as strongly as I can. This is not the only primaries you can pick. This is just a starting point. And I want to prove that to you by a number of different ways. But I want to say first that every color, whether we can call yellow is a warm color. We call red a warm color. But even those colors have a bias to them. In other words, you could have a red that has a little bit of blue in it. In other words, it's cooler than another red that we could put beside it. So we would think of maybe a fire engine red as much hotter red than, say, a rose, for instance. So even though they're both red, they have a bias. They lean one way or the other. They'll lean to the blue or they'll lean to the yellow. And so this color wheel, and you will find on every color wheel, it's not perfect mixture all the way around. We're going to make a sacrifice at some point, and I will explain that here. But let's just talk about this color wheel right now. This is a cadmium yellow. I have simplified this to just CY for cadmium yellow, but the actual paint out of the tube is a Winsor Newton product, cadmium yellow pale. So that is if you want to get real specific with what I've used throughout these demos, it is cadmium yellow pale. But for simplification and to make the chart look nice, I just put cadmium yellow. So cadmium yellow pale, Winsor Newton. You will find too that different manufacturers, their colors, they may have the same name or close to the same name, but they are slightly different. So that's something you will have to become aware of. You probably already are aware of it, but that will help you in your selection of what your favorite yellow or favorite red or favorite blue are. So in this case, I have cadmium yellow pale, this is ultramarine blue, and this is alizarin crimson. So do you notice what happens here? Because of the bias of the color, this cadmium yellow pale, compare it with this right here. This is lemon yellow. Lemon yellow, cadmium yellow. Which one's warmer to you? This is obviously warmer. Why is it warmer? Because it has more red in it. This has more green in it. So of these two yellows, we would say this yellow favors more to the blue side. In other words, has green in it. This particular yellow favors more to the red side. It has more red in it. So what happens, really important concept to understand, why a lot of young artists, students even, have muddy, what they call muddy color, is because all three primaries are involved. Think about it. If you mix, and I'll demonstrate this later, but if you mix all three primaries together, the red, the yellow, and the blue, you will end up with a brown, some sort of brown, variation on brown. So if you want the purest color when you're painting, you want to pick primary colors that have minimal amount of the third primary in them. This yellow, cadmium yellow pale, we say it favors to the red. So it is not only has yellow in it, it has a little bit of red in it, which makes it hotter than that one. So if I want, for instance, the richest orange I can get, then I would pick this yellow over that yellow, because this yellow has the third primary in it, which is blue. And so that tends, this yellow then tends towards the greenish side. But let me show you this. I'm going to put this down here, and I'm going to put this one up here. You're going to find through this video series that I have selected two primaries of each. And it's just because these are the colors that are most often found on my palette in some sort of variation. Not all at once, but I may, for instance, I'll just talk about this one. This is a cobalt blue, and this represents cadmium red. And so we already saw the lemon yellow. So most of my paintings I use some variation of that. Cobalt blue, ultramarine blue, cadmium yellow, lemon yellow, cad red, alizarin crimson. That a lot of artists use something similar to that or that specifically, and they call it a double primary palette. It has a warm and a cool of each of the primaries. A fantastic palette. I have no problems with it. It's a beautiful palette. For this video, however, I'm trying to get you to even think simpler than that because you're going to be awed by what's possible. So right here, let's just compare this. I think you'll all acknowledge that when we compare this red, cadmium red, with alizarin crimson, look at the difference. Which one is the hotter one and which one is the cooler one? This is obviously cooler. Doesn't it have a lot more blue in it than that does? That is a much warmer red. So if we wanted the richest oranges possible, in other words, this range right through here, we would not pick this to mix with that. Because just compare this group right here, yellow orange, orange, and red orange, compared with those. Look how dull those are compared to those. So when we talk about selecting the primaries, which we will talk about in this video, it is important to consider before you even start your painting what colors are most important in the painting. You know, if you're doing a sunset, for instance, and you want a really intense orange, powerful sun as it's setting, you may not want to go with this. Although I've painted sunsets with this because in the context it worked beautifully and those oranges looked rich. But I'm just saying for just pure, outright, strongest oranges, this would be a great combination. Cadmium yellow, pale, cadmium yellow of some sort, and cadmium red. Just compare those, okay? But look, through that now we'll discover there's always a give and take. So if we go for strong oranges, we're going to lose it on the violets. Because compare this, alizarin crimson, which already has blue in it, so it already favors that. So the blue, and this blue, ultramarine blue, has some red in it. If you compare the ultramarine blue, look at that, compared with this cobalt blue, look at the difference. This feels a little bit more neutral or even maybe to the green side a little more than this. This feels redder to me. There's some debate from artists I've read on internet that they say that ultramarine blue is a cool blue. I find in the context of the blues that it is actually a warmer blue. It has more red in it. Anyway, I think it's proven right here. In the violets that can be mixed, because look at the intensity of these violets compared with those. That is so dull. These violets are so dull compared with those. So if violet, that whole range of violets was the most important thing that you needed to have in your paintings or express in your paintings, ultramarine blue and alizarin crimson would be a great combination. You can use the quinacridone rose-colored colors too, which would work. They're all kind of cool reds. But this is what I want to illustrate with this color wheel. Every color has a bias to it. So you need to discern what that bias is. And the best way to do that oftentimes is to put, for instance, in this case, two blues side by side. A better selection yet than, but I don't use it, a better selection yet than putting cobalt in here would have been to use cerulean blue, which is even greener. Or maybe a phthalo blue, I think is pretty green also. But you could stick those in there and you would see the difference. You would see this contrast much greater than maybe even here, although I think it's pretty obvious here. All right, another really important part I want to point out is let's put this one down and put this up, because we need to talk about greens. Artists really struggle with greens and making them interesting. So if we use a cadmium yellow that has red in it, and we mix it with an ultramarine blue that has red in it, we get these kinds of greens. This yellow has red in it. This yellow does not, or a lot less. I would say this does not have any. So let's just compare the greens here. See that you can see the influence of red in these greens. It's mixed with a blue that already has a little bit of red in it. It's mixed with a yellow that already has a little bit of red in it. And you can see the greens compared with those. Look how much more intense and bright those greens are. Because in this case, this blue, yes, ultramarine blue has a little bit of red in it, but this yellow doesn't have any. So when we compare these greens with those, these look more intense. But look at this right here. This is cobalt blue and lemon yellow. Look how intense those greens are, how much different those greens are than this group. I mean, it is obvious, very much of a difference. So another important consideration, if you want really bright greens, more intense greens, you would probably pick, in this case, just for this case, a lemon yellow and a cobalt blue. I think it's important that, at least for me it is, to mix up these color wheels like this and to actually show what those mixtures are going to be. You can see I have a whole stack of them here. This was the color wheels where I mixed the cobalt blue, cad red, lemon yellow, and then this one here, and every kind of combination I could come up with, and it came up to 8 different color wheels. What is important is you realize if you change one primary, another whole color wheel has to be mixed. So your question may be, well, John, where do I get these color wheels? And I found them online, so this will help you and it'll save you a lot of time where you don't actually have to draw this out. You can buy this as it is. I had to make a few modifications, and it comes in a package of overlays too. I was not interested in the overlays. I just wanted the color wheel, which I can have a permanent record then of what these particular primaries, what mixtures those will give me. But if you're interested, this is called Create a Color Wheel. You can find it on the internet, and it's by the Color Wheel Company. So that should give you the information you need where you can purchase these, create your own color wheels. Why do I create the color wheel? Once these formulations, once these mixtures are created, I don't ever have to try to match that again. In other words, mix it again and hope I got it right. I spend a lot of time on getting variation between each one and finding that each one of these had a nice division between them. There wasn't a closeness. I mean, you can actually see very clearly these are all separated, distinctly separate. So I spent a lot of time working that out to get that distinction. Once those were set, then I know anytime I want to use this palette and I need a green on the palette that's going to be that color, I know I used cadmium yellow and I used ultramarine blue to get that. So I put those out on my palette, I mix to that green. Once I get to that green, I know, okay, that is going to work with my plan. All these other tints here are with white added, going to the center. So a little more white added each time as we move to the center. If you don't want to do the color wheel, or you just want to mix up a lot of this at one time, this is a great way to go too. And I've also used this, which is a tube. It's open on the end, and you can, fill it. It'll take a big puddle of paint, mix it, put it in the bottom of the tube, tap it down, get the air out of it, and you crimp it at the end. And then you can mark on the tube what's in it, and you'll always have it. You won't have to mix every time. But because I don't use the exact same palette every time, I used to early on have tubes of all of this whole color wheel. Every color around the outside rim I had mixed and put in a tube. But I found that as I was experimenting with other colors, that I wasn't using those for every painting. And so I decided I'll just mix as I go and mix what I need when I want it, because as we're going to learn in this video, I don't necessarily have the cadmium yellow, I don't necessarily have these 3 primaries on the palette when I'm painting. I may pick just a section from the color wheel and use those colors. And that's what this video is about, and I think you're going to be fascinated. You know, I want to make one more point, which I alluded to earlier here. What I'd like to point out here is that the difference using 3 different kinds of blues: ultramarine blue, cobalt blue, cerulean blue, mixed with the 2 yellows that I've spoken of, the cadmium yellow pale, which is a warm yellow, and then the lemon yellow. Look at the difference here. Ultramarine blue mixed with cadmium yellow pale, you get that green. But mix that same blue with the lemon yellow and you get that green. See the difference? Significantly different. Cobalt blue is, that green there is just a little bit brighter, although it's still mixed with a yellow that has a little bit of red in it. It's a little bit brighter than that one. And this green is just slightly brighter than that one, because cobalt blue mixed with lemon yellow down here, cobalt blue mixed with cadmium yellow pale here. But look at cerulean blue. Cerulean blue is even a little greener to me than cobalt, and definitely than the ultramarine. And these greens, you can just see the progression. It's very subtle. It might be very subtle on camera, I don't know. But there is a slight progression here where these get brighter. And that's all because of that blue mixed with these different yellows produces, you know, these variations of greens. So this is another consideration. If you are concerned with getting a variety of greens in your painting, you can use 2 blues and 2 yellows, a warm and a cool of each, and now you broaden the whole range of greens that are possible. But that's not what I'm teaching. I really want you to try the 3 colors first, and then you can always expand after that. This is the part I'm very excited about teaching, because it is this teaching that really changed my painting, has changed the painting of a lot of my students. We're still talking about just this color wheel, okay? This is not, I want to keep stressing, this is not the only set of primaries you can use. But just for this, because it could get real extensive if I talked about every possible blue primary you could use, and yellow primary and red primary you could use, I mean, we would have we'd have a pile of different color wheels. And so for this video, I just want to keep it really simple and straightforward, because with this knowledge, you can expand and move out from there. But I'm setting the groundwork for you to experiment and try some stuff on your own. I think the important thing, the takeaway that I want from this video, is that you actually try the stuff. Don't just look at the video and say, "Ooh, that's interesting." You need to go to the studio, lay the tubes of paint out, and start mixing color. That's how you're going to learn this, learn these combinations, and learn what your palette will do for you. A lot of times, too, when we have a lot of color, when I started painting in the fine arts, I had 11 to 15 colors on my palette. But I didn't understand how to use them. I'm not saying 11 to 15 colors is bad, but my painting greatly increased when I learned that, hey, you can mix a lot of these colors that you already have in your paintings, you can mix them with just 3 primaries. And that's when I got rid of everything else and went to 3 primaries. And this was the first group of primaries I chose. And I think it was probably Kevin McPherson's influence more than anything that got me headed in this direction, thinking, okay, how to think about using primaries and what they'll do for us. When I learned this, it was like a huge light bulb came on. I was so excited. I spent 2 weeks up until the wee hours of the morning just mixing paint, and over going, wow, wow, wow. You mean I can get all this from that? I couldn't believe it. And immediately my paintings, because all the color has to be intermixed. You can't pull in another color from outside. I can't pull in a phthalo green or Indian red or something else, pull it into there and just stick it in someplace. That's what makes paintings unharmonious. They don't connect. When we're using just 3 primaries, the beauty of that is if you want green, you're going to have to intermix these colors together. You're going to have to definitely mix a yellow with the blue to get the green. But if you want a variation of that green, then you add the 3rd primary. And so you can get all these variations of greens from this. That's the beauty of it. But of course, the first thing we got to talk about is just monochromatic. What is monochromatic? Monochromatic is one color and then with white or black. And this is a monochromatic painting. It's just used red, white, and black. And I mean, that's pretty interesting just with one color, don't you think? Also, I want to point out that every one of these paintings you're going to see, paintings that are going to follow, you notice the subject is exactly the same. The direction of the light is exactly the same. The composition's exactly the same, and the proportion of the substrate is exactly the same. Then the next division would be the complements. A complement is an opposite. Here's a color wheel showing a complement. Any color on the color wheel, that and that would be a complement. That and that would be a complement, okay? Anything that's opposite is a complement. Think about this now. We have yellow, has a little bit of red in it. We have violet, which has a little bit of blue in it, okay? We've got the 3 primaries already involved. We have the yellow, we have the blue, and this has red in it. So we have all 3 primaries. So why are they called complements? Because when those 3 are mixed together, what do you end up with? Grays. And let me show you that. These are the 6 colors we've already talked about. The cad yellow, pale, which is a warm yellow, ultramarine blue, alizarin crimson, cad red, cobalt blue, lemon yellow. I've mixed each one of those with its complement, with the violet, blue with the orange, red with the green, and then same over here. Look what you end up with in the middle. They're all brownish grays. It proves the very point that I'm trying to make. 3 primaries together, you will always end up with gray. So when you're struggling with your color and you say, my paintings look muddy, one of the reasons may be is your color is not clean color. But I also want to stress mud is not an ugly color. It's how it's used. These grays are beautiful in the right context. In fact, I think some of the most beautiful paintings are mostly in the gray ranges. And then the vibrant, more intense color are used as accents. And so I just want to point out, though, this is what happens when you mix the primary with its complement. You will end up with grays all the way across. And so I wanted to show that to you and show you this is 1. How many complements then could we have on this color wheel? Well, if you count down, there's 1 there, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So there'd be 6 possible complementary combinations. So complements, any opposite color on this 12-spoke color wheel. The next one are what I call equilateral triads. Equilateral meaning each one of these primaries are equally spaced. All right? There's 4 spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4. Every 4th spot on the color wheel would make an equilateral triangle. So if you think of each one of these color wheels as a clock, tick, 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 go all the way around, how many of these would you have? You'd have 1, 2, 3, 4 possibilities of equilateral triads. This is number 1. Look at that combination compared with this. Isn't that neat? I mean, it's totally different. Everything exactly the same. Composition, subject, everything. But just by changing the color, you get another whole effect. So when I talk about limited palette, unlimited color, it's almost exactly that. There's no limit to what can be done with these palettes. And look at all the different moods that can be created just by switching up what part of the color wheel we use. So this is called an Equilateral Triad. Obviously, you can see from this is the one that is typically used. I found this in my classes, which I thought was really interesting. I would give this lecture, just like I'm doing with you here. I give this lecture, okay, look at all the possibilities you can use on the color wheel. Well, if we don't use these three primaries, then we've got to mix these. We have to mix these colors in order to take that, click it one more spot and say, okay, I want to use a yellow, green, and a blue, violet, and a red, orange. I want that to be my palette. You have to mix those colors. So what I found, because I think probably maybe out of fear, maybe out of a little self-doubt, a lot of things like that, the students would oftentimes just take these three primaries and work with these. But what I want you to do is move beyond. Start clicking that little clock as you go around and mix up the color. And what we're going to see later is I will mix out my whole palette for you, and you'll see exactly how I do it. So this is called an Equilateral Triad. Wonderful, wonderful color combinations and different schemes, moods that can be achieved with those. This is another triad. This is called an Isosceles Triad. 3 colors. It's just isosceles on equal sides. This is sometimes called a split complement also. I like to just keep it in the triad vernacular. So this is yellow. You would go across to the color wheel, cross from that to its complement, and select the color on each side. Now in this situation, of course, you could fill this in, because if you mix the red violet with the blue violet, you will end up with that violet in there. So I can see that, okay, on this particular case, I could have the yellow and these 3 other colors on my palette at the same time, and it would still work fine. It just saves you having to mix up that violet all the time. But that will not work every time. If I was to click this to the right, 1 notch, and the blue was here, you can't mix blue. So that would be a pure one. You'd go orange. You can't mix the blue, so it would be orange, blue violet, and blue green would be on your palette in that case, because that's a case where you can't mix that. You can't mix that primary there. But I hope you're understanding this, because this is a wonderful palette. There are so many artists that use not these particular primaries, but they use this Isosceles Triad color, not a color scheme, but configuration. They use this a lot in their paintings, and it's such a wonderful combination that really you can't go wrong. The beauty of this is the less there's less messing up in a sense, because everything has to be intermixed, and you will really be able to get some really neat effects. The other thing you're going to find surprising is what you're mixing on your palette. How in the world is that going to look green? I'm trying to mix green, but there's nothing here I can mix green with. And the tendency we have is we're looking at nature, we're looking at a photograph, and we're saying, I got to mix that color. And you won't necessarily be able to mix that color exactly, but that doesn't matter, because once that's mixed here and you put it up in context, you say, boy, that looks green, because it's all relative, and it all works together beautifully. So here's an Isosceles Triad with this particular combination, yellow, red, violet, blue, violet. I came up with that color scheme. Another thing I want to point out is that the only possible solution using those 3? Not at all. And I'm going to show you that later in this video also. This could be done in probably an infinite number of ways. Not infinite, but a lot of other ways to create different effects, different emphasis, what we emphasize, This has a green emphasis to it. It could have a red-violet emphasis to it. It could have a blue-violet emphasis to it. I went somewhere in the middle and created the green. So when you see these, that is not the only solution. I want to stress that over and over and over. It's so important. All right, another really interesting combination that we can use is called a square quadratic. Quadratic 4, and it forms a square. If you were to draw from the center to the center of each one of those, it would form a square. That's why we call it a square quadratic. And how many of them are there? There's 1, 2, 3. There's 3. 3 possible. So this is based on this one: yellow, blue-green, red-orange, and violet. Notice these are complements. They're also they're just 2 complements. Each of those are complements, and that is a result of just these. The tendency would be too that, man, I can't get what I want with just those on my palette. I've got to add something else. That's the tendency you need to avoid, because you won't really learn what your palette's going to do for you if you're stick another color in there because you're not satisfied with the results you can get. If you're not satisfied with the results you're getting, it may be that you've picked the wrong primaries or the wrong system, the wrong combination on the color wheel. That's possible. But, man, there's so many varieties here that can be created. It's just, it's pretty much mind-boggling. So, try this, square quadratic. Yes, this would be all that's on the palette. I don't know if I just said that. This would be all that's on the palette, plus white, nothing else. And everything in this painting or any other painting, when this is chosen, would be mixed just from those. Here is a rectangular quadratic. Again, 4 colors, but it forms a rectangle. Okay? Another beautiful possibility. And let's see, how many of those are there? There's 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't remember how many there were of this. Can't remember offhand exactly how many there are. But this forms a beautiful group of colors also that can be used. Remember, if, like I pointed out earlier, if it's really important to you that you have a bright orange here in this combination, you would not want to mix. You would want maybe red here, Cad red here, mixed with say ultramarine blue. Your violets would suffer; they would not be as bright, but your oranges would be bright. So remember, I said earlier, there's a give and take on this color wheel, and so you have to decide before, and this is the concept stage, what you want to communicate and how best to communicate that. That will help you select the colors that you need. So this is called a rectangular quadratic. Okay, this is one of my favorites. This is the analogous. And if you look at color charts, they often define analogous as 3 colors in a row. And then oftentimes they'll say, well, then you can use an accent as a color opposite. Well, to me, that's the Isosceles Triad. You're basically using the colors on one end and going across and using a complement. So what I have done, and I really like doing this because of the effects it can create, is I use an extended analogous. In other words, I've gone from 3 to 5 colors. And the reason I like doing that is, if you think about it, all the teaching we've already mentioned on the complement, the farther you get away, this is the yellow, the complement is violet, right? So the farther you get away from that yellow, the greater opportunity one has to mix something closer to gray. So it gives more variety into an analogous painting. This one may not be the best situation. I can see this maybe being used in certain situations where this color scheme is appealing, but it's very limited. You can see it's a bunch of greens and a blue. So we have blue and we have yellow and everything in between. So I mean, you can go blue, that's the extent as blue as you can go on one end, and you can go as yellow as you can go on the other end, but everything else is going to be some sort of variation of greens. And that's why we ended up with this. Pleasing, but isn't it interesting, just with those colors plus white. So just think about it as, and there's 12 possible analogous color schemes. You could just click around 12 times around there, every one's slightly different. So if we clicked one space to the right, we would add blue-violet here. Click another space to the right, we'd start having violet, and we would begin here with the green. And you can start to imagine, okay, green and violet together, what can be mixed with that? And you go all the way around, create some beautiful stuff. So, wonderful, wonderful color scheme that ought to be tried. And then there are 3 others I want to talk about. This is, remember, all these that you're seeing are created with this color wheel and these 3 primaries. These 3 primaries. All these colors, for instance here, mixed. All these greens were mixed from that blue and that yellow. So everything that I've shown you so far has been mixed just with those 3 primaries that we started with, the Alizarin Crimson, Ultramarine Blue, Cadmium Yellow Pale. So here is what we call a yellow dominant palette. Every one of these colors on this color wheel has yellow in it. Certainly the red-orange does, the orange, the yellow-orange. The yellow certainly does, the yellow-green, the green, and the blue-green. They all have a little bit of yellow in it. That's a beautiful palette too. And a possible, is that the best? I don't know if it's the best. It's a solution. But, you know, I think everything can be changed and improved, I think. These are studies and just something to inspire and give ideas. Oh, well, what if I do this? So I wanted to show you, here's a yellow dominant. And it definitely has a yellowish dominant feel to it, doesn't it? This one I really like is a blue dominant. And here I took some great liberties with the subject and decided, I want to see what I can do if I created a snow scene using this. And look at that. Blue dominant, there's the blue in the center. These all have elements of blue in them. And created a snow scene using just this palette. That's all that was on the palette. And just, you know, it's exciting to me. I hope you're picking up on the excitement that I feel. Because if you do, you will then start to experiment on your own and try some things on your own, and you'll have those same wow moments that I've had. And that's what I'm really hoping comes out of this video. And then here, finally, we have the red dominant. Red in the center. All these colors contain red. This could probably maybe even feel a little more red dominant than it does, but this is what I came up with in creating using just this palette. So did you get all that? You have yellow dominant, blue dominant, red dominant, then you have the monochromatic, you have complementary, you have the Equilateral Triad, you have the Isosceles Triad, you have the square quadratic, and you have the rectangular quadratic. And then you have the extended analogous. All those from this. You get that? All those from just these 3 colors. So think what happens if you were to change up those primaries. Then you get another whole range of beauty. I just want to emphasize as strongly as I can. If you look at the manufacturer's color charts, there's a whole string of yellows. There's a whole string of blues, whole string of reds. Any one of those would work for you. It's just, I think the colors that we choose, they sort of naturally suit our temperament and personality. I think we just gravitate to certain colors. Why that is, I don't know. I know years ago when they had people would go to analysts to see what colors looked best on them. Oftentimes, the colors that looked best on them were colors already that they liked and gravitated to. There's just something innate in us about our color sense and the particular colors we choose, and then how we put them together and use them. And that's what it's so exciting about our profession as painters, is we can create this marvelous world from just a few colors. It's amazing, and I want you to get that. I just wanted to show you these examples I had created using complementary colors and what's possible. It's so exciting. I think working with complements can be, give some very interesting possibilities. But here are the three primaries we've been talking about all along: the Ultramarine Blue, Alizarin Crimson, and the Cadmium Yellow Pale. And then these are mixed with their complement. So the red and the yellow were mixed to get that orange. Okay, so the blue was mixed with the orange. This is just with a little bit of, this is the pure, no white at all added in this center string. This side to the right, just a little bit of white added, and then here to the left, much more white added. Isn't that beautiful? I think it's just really interesting. In this case here, we have the green was mixed, we have the red here, which was mixed with the blue to get this violet over here, which is the complement of the yellow. And then the yellow mixed with that violet. Look at these variations. Just a little bit of white added, more white added. And then the same through the center. We have the blue and the yellow mixed together to create the complement of the red, which is green. And then the red with the green mixed, and look at that beautiful combination. So as you stand back and look at all those together, it's pretty amazing. Just working with complements. All right, we talked earlier about color having a bias to it. I'm going to just demonstrate that here by mixing up a couple of reds for you. It'll be real easy for you to see it. So I'm going to lay out some color now. Okay, I'm going to put a little white out so we can... I think I have some white left in this tube. Put a little white out, and I'm going to put out Alizarin Crimson. Just a little bit. We're just a simple mixing demonstration. And a little bit of Cad Red. This one is so obvious. Okay, these reds here, it's pretty obvious. They're warm and cool, but let's demonstrate it. I pulled them out because it is so obvious. But here's Alizarin Crimson. Okay, I'm going to put a little bit of white in that. Just put a little more white in. Remember, when white is added to any color, white is cold, so it will cool any color down that you're mixing. And it's not so bad here where you're mixing a red that is already cold. It's a cold red. But over here, if we put out Cad Red, see how much difference that, it's so obvious. It's really much warmer, but if we were to add white to that, you can still see how much warmer that red is than the alizarin. And we can keep adding white. But see what happens to the red as we add the white to it? See how dead it becomes? That is a real challenge for an artist when you're trying to lighten a color to also keep it warm enough. So in cases like this, you might want to go to the color next to it. In other words, anything that approaches the yellow in this case. So we're saying Cad Red is here in this case. Anything that moves towards yellow, if you added, for instance, a little red orange into that will warm that up ever so slightly without changing it too much. I have at times too just gone to the yellow and put just a small amount of yellow into that to warm it up. You have to be really careful because it will take it out of the red and move it to the orange if you're not careful. So, but look at the difference. I just wanted to illustrate the point between warm and cool. So when we're selecting a primary red, which one is it going to be? And this is only, like I said, you could go with a Cad Red light. You could go with a quinacridone rose color. There's a whole range. You could go Indian red. You could go Terra Rosa. I mean, you could go, there's all kinds of red possibilities here. For simplicity, I need to stress over and over again, this is just to make a point to get you to think in terms of palette selection, the colors that you actually put on your palette, and what mixtures they will give you. That's why this is so important. All right, what we're going to do now is mix the color wheel. I'm going to mix every one of these, show you how I do them. This color wheel, as I pointed out earlier, is very useful in that, okay, I know now what that green that I mix has to look like. It has to match that. And that blue-green has to match that. I'm going to show you how to do all of that. But I want to point out, here's the colors I'm using. I've got white. I've got 2 whites out. I just want to talk about the whites. Permalba is a really, really wonderful white. A lot of artists use it. It's a very cold white, but it's very buttery, and I like it. This is a Griffin Alkyd white, titanium white. Both of these are titanium white, by the way. This is a Griffin Alkyd white. I started using this when I began painting outdoors, and because it dries much faster than the typical just a titanium white. So in the studio, what I'm generally doing is I always use the Griffin Alkyd white, but then I'll put a little Permalba in it just to slow the drying down a little bit. And then outdoors, I just use the straight Griffin Alkyd white. So I wanted to explain the whites that I use. And of course, all that's your choice too. But they're both titanium whites. And then the 3 colors, which match these here on the color wheel: Ultramarine Blue, Alizarin Crimson, Cadmium Yellow Pale. In this case, they're all Winsor Newton brand. You'll have to discover which brands you like. I use a variety of brands. So it's this demo and these color selections are not about the brands. It's just about, that's what I'm picking for this. This would be I guess the one that would be about the brands, and that Winsor Newton is the only one that makes this Cadmium Yellow Pale. Okay, so that would be brand specific, but the other 2 not. So I'm going to lay out the paint. First of all, lay out the 3 primaries. And one thing I'd like to point out is you will lay out your palette specific to the way you like to work. There are lots of ways. Some artists will start here with their light colors on the left and then go to their darker ones on the right. Some put their cool colors down one side and their warm colors across the top and their white in the corner. None of that is wrong. It's all great. You just find what's comfortable with you. And but the important point I want to make about that is that you set it up the same every time. You don't need to be searching for color when you're painting. It should almost, after you've painted a while, it's going to be instinctive. You'll just know where to reach and where to pull color out, and you'll learn how much to pull out to get the mixtures you want. So the way I set up my palette is I set it up prismatically. In other words, almost through the rainbow. But I start with, I have my white on the left, which I'll lay out here in a little bit, but I start with the blue. So I start with ultramarine blue, and I lay it out. And I lay it out in a string because I want to work off the end of it, okay? So I'll lay out ultramarine blue. Then I'll lay out alizarin crimson, but I'm thinking, okay, there's going to be blue violet, violet, red violet in there, so I need to put my alizarin crimson over here someplace. I'll put it right here. Lay out alizarin crimson. All right? Hope I'm laying out enough here. We'll see. It might not be. And then we've got red orange, orange, yellow orange, yellow. So I'll put my yellow here. Okay. Now the greens we're mixing. So the greens will be mixed with ultramarine blue and cadmium yellow pale. And they'll go here, yellow green, green, blue green. That will be this whole string. That's this whole color wheel laid out, all 12 colors. You could do it this way, lay it out in a straight line. Basically, that's how my palette is set up. Just lay it out in a row. That's another way to do it. If you don't want to create a color wheel, do it like this. And then what this shows is these are various amounts of white added as I go down until we get to the very bottom, which are very light tints of all these. So that's another really great way to do it. I like the color wheels, and they work good for me. So, okay, what we're going to do now is mix this color wheel. So how do you do that? I'm going to put out my whites here. Let me do that next. Because some of these you're going to need white to get the mixture correct. See on the dark ones here, you can't, those are very hard to distinguish whether I've got those correct or not. Same here in this blue-green range here. Those get very dark. So a little bit of white has to be added to so I can discern very clearly that I'm in the right place. So I'm going to put out a little bit of, I'm going to put out some white. I may need to add to these colors. I don't know yet. We'll see. And I'll put out a pile of white. Mix that up good. I guess I should have illustrated the point. Maybe I'll do that for you real quick if I can. That's an interesting point too that oftentimes we're not aware of. And I think you'll be able to pick this up on the screen. Let me see here. Here's Alkyd white. That's Alkyd white, titanium white, okay? This is Permalba white, and they do call it titanium, I think. No, they just call it white. I guess they're not calling it titanium white, but you should be able to see the difference. I don't know if you can see that. It's real obvious to me here. This white, Permalba, see how much colder it is than the Griffin Alkyd white? This is warmer to me. It has just a little, this is very cold. This has, I don't know whether it's yellow in there or what it is, but it's just the smallest amount makes it warmer than that white. So even in whites, there's quite a variation that one needs to be aware of. So I'll put these together. Put that over here. So what we want to do now is mix to our violets. We'll mix our violets right through here. I recommend, because it's really hard to, this took some time. It takes some time to get this, that there is a distinct separation here. So it's not something you can rush. That's why I recommend either creating a color wheel like this or creating the string, which I just showed you in a row, and have a permanent record of that. Because then you don't have to guess every time, well, am I really as green as I was the first time I mixed it? Am I really as violet as I was the first time I mixed it? Is my blue-violet really blue-violet, or is it leaning more to the violet or more to the red? So that's why I like a permanent record. And I think it'd be helpful if you create it. Plus, this is a great exercise, just mixing the color and then all these tints and try to get that nice gradation of values as you go to the center. Great exercise. You learn a lot about mixing color just by doing this. So I encourage that. So I recommend very first thing we do, if we're mixing violets, we're just going to go down the string. I've got the red and I've got the blue. I need to mix this. The red and the blue, I'm mixing to the middle. So I need to get the violet. So I'll pull out some blue. I'll probably have to put out a lot more pigment here because I don't want to run out. Let me clean this off. You want this nice and clean, uninterrupted by anything else. And you have to keep your knives clean in between. I'll tell you what, I'm going to mix up nice batches of this, so I'm going to put out more color here. Okay, we're going to violet. So I've set out some blue, and I'm going to put some red in it. See, we can't really tell what that is yet. Feels a little blue to me. We'll go with a little more red. Mix it up really good. I'm going to put just a touch of white in this to see where we are. Okay. I don't want the white to influence the pile, so. Okay, we got a violet. Let's see how close we are. Looks like we're pretty close. We're actually pretty darn close. Right off, I'm going to add just a touch more violet. See how it matches with the darker one. Yeah, I'm going to go with that. So I got my violet. Okay, so violet, all this color goes right in the middle. Okay, now we're going to mix to the blue violet. Take a little of this. Okay, we got the violet. We want to go to the blue violet over here. So that blue with white in it needs to look like that. So I'm going to add more blue. Still looks too violet-y to me. Go more blue. Let's run a test. See how blue it is. Yeah, I'm going with that. So this blue, it goes right here. Okay, now we're going for red violet. So we're looking, we'll put in the red and then the violet we've used to mix to that. Do you see the reasoning behind this, though? That if you go to the middle and get what you think is the most pure violet, use that as your starting point to go off to the sides. I did not explain, I'm sorry about that, I did not explain these terms. We talked about the complements, what those are. They're the opposite, okay? Any opposite color is a complement. But those in between, this is a complement, okay? That in between, the yellow-green, is what they call a tertiary color. It's in between the complements. So the yellow-green, the blue-green, the blue-violet, the red-violet, the red-orange, and the yellow-orange are all tertiary colors. And if you've ever done a painting just using tertiary colors, that's interesting too. Okay, we're going to do some more violet. I will definitely need to mix more violet here. I won't make that mistake again here. Okay, we've got violet. We're going to put a little bit of red in it, and we'll have to build to the red violet. So we're going now more to the red side. We want that to feel red. We don't want it to feel red. We want it to feel red-violet, but have an influence of red. That's what I meant. I'm going to put a little bit of white in this to check it. Not sure that's red enough yet. You can see it's not even close to where we need to be. You know, as I said earlier, it's important to know what your color is going to do for you. As I mentioned earlier, when I first learned about this limited palette, I spent 2 weeks, literally 2 weeks, many hours a day, up into the wee hours of the morning, just mixing color. Of course, threw away a lot of color, but boy, I learned a lot. I'm going to try just a little more red in it, not much. We're going to go with that. Okay, so now we've got all our violets. What you have learned from when I talked about the bias of a color, we know that these violets right here are a lot more intense, cleaner, brighter violets than what would be mixed if this was a Cad Red there. Okay, we're going to go orange to the oranges. So that is yellow and that red. So I know the yellow's really powerful. So I'm going to put out some yellow and see how much of this red it takes to get to orange. It'll take a bit. Yeah, I'm getting close, but I need more red. It can be hard to discern. I think that's pretty close. I'm going to go with that. It's pretty close. So anyway, that goes in the middle. Now we're going to go to the red-orange. So we're going to take some of this off, put it out in the middle, add some red to it. Isn't that color beautiful? It just color can be both frustrating and exhilarating. It's both. But once you understand it and you know what the color will do for you, it is so exciting to experiment with it and see the different combinations, color schemes, what's possible. You want this to feel more to the red than to the orange. I think I'm pretty close here. I'm going to go with this. So this is red-orange. Now we want to do yellow-orange. Big pile of yellow. Some orange. That already may be too much. Yeah, it's already too much. Go with that. So now I'm going to mix the greens. So we're going to go to the middle green. Start with yellow. Go to the blue. That's pretty good. Maybe go just with a little bit of more blue. Okay, going to yellow-green next. We're already pretty close right off. I'm going with that. Yellow-green goes there. We've got one more color to go. That's the blue-green. We'll need to add white to this to see it. And then we've got our whole palette laid out before us. And then we'll pick and choose what we're actually going to use. Take a lot of this. It's going to take a lot of blue on this one. I just started off with too much yellow. Let's see what we got. See how close we are. Pretty close. Yeah. So we'll pick this up, put it over here as our blue-green. Hope that you understand how it's done, how important this is, or that other chart that I had where the color is laid out in a straight line, how important that is to take the time on the front end to mix up that color. Let's start off with a complementary painting. And I've already pre-drawn it here. This surface here was also toned with a yellow-green, which this is toned with yellow-green, which is right here. That's the green. Toned it with that yellow-green that's on my palette. This palette is what I'm using for all of these studies, these little demos I'm going to do today, based on the Ultramarine Blue, Alizarin Crimson, Cadmium Yellow Pale. So for this complementary study, it's toned with yellow-green, but the colors I chose are red, violet, and yellow-green. I picked some things that you wouldn't typically choose, just to show you what can be done. So you can see what the result will be here. I'm going to show you on the palette how those colors were actually mixed. So the first thing I'm going to do is pull out. We're saying the palette is yellow-green and red-violet. So I'm going to pull those two out so that nothing else is going to be used. So all those other colors on the back of the palette will remain, but they're not going to be in this color scheme. So there's yellow-green, and here's the red-violet. We'll pull it down. And of course, we're going to use the white, and I can leave it where it is. So there's the palette. Very unusual, don't you think? But the effects can be amazing. So what I'm going to do is mix up. I'm going to just pre-mix some color here, and then we'll apply it here. It'll save some time. So I'm going to show you how I mix these colors. So let's start with the side of the house. Well, if you look at this study here, maybe there might be some yellow-green in there somewhere right out of the, straight. It might be right there. But there's very little straight yellow-green. There's very little straight red-violet. There's a little bit there. But everything else is mixed. So in every one of these other mixtures throughout this, are going to be varying amounts of these two colors that we have out. So we know that to start with. So I'm looking at the side of the house. It's kind of somewhere in the middle. It's not red violet and it's not yellow green. So I'm going to start with a little of both, and all these will have some white in them too probably. But I'm going to start mixing some color here to see how close we can get. I'll put in a little white in. So I'm trying to judge right now about what that is. I'm going to leave that for right now as a possible tone that's pretty close. I can use a little modification as I apply it, but that'll be a good starting point. I'm still going to go for the side of the house, so I'm going to start with some white. Put red violet in it. A little bit of green. Let's see where we are. Getting pretty close. Not bad. See, when you look at it on the palette, you're thinking, how in the world is that going to look like anything when I put it up there? But it looks pretty good. So there's two. Let's do the roof of the house. It's got, obviously, it's a little more red violet. So again, we'll start with some white. Quite a bit darker. Okay. These can all be modified slightly as we proceed, but I'm just getting the kind of the basics, something pretty close to those colors. This is kind of got a little more green in it than that side. So what I'm going to do is take this pile, which I already said is going to be the house side. I'm going to pull a little bit down. Add a little bit of white to it. And just a touch of green. Might be pretty close on that. Seems a little more green it needs. But these are the exercises about color that are so challenging and yet so enjoyable, because when you come up with something, it's very satisfying. All right, that's for the house. We need some darks for the shadow side underneath the eaves, so I'll mix that up. And in the porch area, those darks. So as dark as I can go would be the straight red violet, so I'll start with that. But that's way too dark. You can see it's way too dark, so it needs to be muted a little bit, which I'll lighten it and gray it just a little bit. Gray it with the green. Closer. That might work. We'll try it. All those can be modified. All right, we'll try the sky. See what I can do with that. Okay, lighter part of the sky and a little bit darker up there. So we'll needs to be neutralized a little bit. Gray, in other words, gray just a little bit. Pretty close. Okay, let's lay in some color. What I'm going to demonstrate later, too, is that the tone of the surface makes a difference on the outcome, what it's going to look like on the outcome. So this yellow-green surface here has a direct influence on what this painting is going to look like. What if I had toned this with a red-violet? Think how different the painting would look. Just something for you to consider too. Gives another whole dimension to what we're talking about. have to adjust. These will need to be adjusted. These colors are not quite where they need to be. I'm going to go ahead and get the sky laid in, let it be setting up a little bit before I continue. Just want to get a little closer to the feeling of that color. So I think I'm a little better now. I want to get that spot of sun in there. It'll be a nice contrast, and I'll kind of know better how to treat the rest of it. That is very, very light. Just a touch of yellow-green, very little. I want to lay that in. Gives me a guide for the rest of it. Let's lay in the foreground greens. Get that area covered. It'll probably need to be altered somewhat, but be a good starting point. We'll go back into that with some yellow-green. Right now, let's get that area covered. Just putting some accents in here. This is to show you how I approach it. It's not going to come up to that level. I'm just trying to show you a number of different ideas and color schemes and how they were, some of the colors were mixed. How we got to the point that you see here. These accents will help define a little bit more clear what's going on. Anyway, I think you're getting a pretty good idea of how this is done using just two colors. The great, wonderful possibilities that can be done with just two colors plus white. Okay, why don't we stop there? I think you got the idea of how we do this. Bring it to that point. It needs, to match that exactly. I got obviously more work to do, but I still use the same two colors as I used on this and would continue to work on that and bring it up to a higher level. But red, violet, yellow, green, and white, a complementary painting.
We did something that's never been done in the history of art books. And this is the first art book we've ever done. And quite frankly, I didn't really want to go into the art book business, but when I saw this concept, I said I have to do this. The first thing that's never been done is we created a book that includes a palette, which is basically a piece of plastic. So John was at our studio. We have this soundstage in Austin, and he was shooting his first art instruction video, which is awesome. And essentially, he kind of teased me with this thing. He pulled out this drawing, or this panel, and I said, "What's that?" He said, "Oh, it's something I'm working on." He said, "My students love it." And so he's like sucking me in. And I said, "Well, tell me about it." And he says, "Well, everybody has trouble with color, and nobody really understands color, and everybody gets completely confused by it. And there's all these theories and all these confusing color wheels and all this stuff." He said, I've simplified it. And I said, "Well, tell me more about it." He said, "Well, basically, I have done this painting." He had a little painting in the corner and then a little couple color wheels. He said, "I've done this painting how many times?"
46 times.
46 times. What he's done is he's created moods. Like if you wanted a really bright afternoon sunlit day, then here's a couple variations on it. Essentially, you can flip through the book and you can see all these different color variations, and everything is done with 3 colors.
The whole premise of the book is that we really don't need a lot of color on our palette. I've been working with a 3-color palette since probably the middle 80s.
Middle Ages.
Yes. So what I did, I found through my workshops that, of course, students love to work with color and generally had, a lot of tube colors on their palette. So I wanted to show them just what a person can do with 3 colors. So I eliminated everything else that we consider when we're doing a painting. The drawing, the composition, the value structure, all that. I eliminated all that by creating exactly the same painting. It turned out to be 46 times, I'll tell you why. Eliminate all those things and just concentrated on color. So if the subject was the same, the composition was the same, the value structure was the same throughout everything, the only thing that was left was color. So I created 46 paintings using every single combination of the color wheel I could think of. And this is only the beginning because I'm using just 3 primaries. But if you switch 1 primary, you can start all over again. So it's almost unlimited.
So this is a monumental project.
The amazing thing that opened my eyes is I did a color swatch for each painting. I had the color wheel, which I created for each one of these paintings, and then the painting itself, laid all those out on a table for my students, and they could not believe it. It was like revolutionary. And they said, John, you have got to do a book. It was almost like the whole group together in unison came up and said, John, you got to do a book. And thankfully, Streamline saw the vision for it. And this is the result.
All right, thank you very much. Now I will tell you one other thing that when John explained it like that to me, I said, what the hell is he talking about? Excuse me. And so I said, John, let's do a video on it too. So it's a companion thing. It's a video and a book, and he explains the whole process. It's just fabulous. And so I just wanted to tell you about that because I think it's good.
What if you could create any mood you imagine in your paintings and know exactly how to mix the colors to make it? You're about to see a revolutionary system that's going to open up the world of color and create nearly endless possibilities for you. With just 3 colors, you'll be able to create amazing color choices in order to achieve any mood or feeling you desire in your paintings. Maybe it's a warm, sunny day or a cool nighttime painting. Colors create emotions, and people respond better to emotional paintings. But this isn't just a course on color or color harmony. It's a system of mixing colors in a unique way, which will help you master color like never before, whether you're an old pro or completely new to painting. Presenting Paint Unlimited Color with a Limited Palette. How to paint hundreds of color schemes with just 3 colors with master artist John Pototschnik. And for the first time ever, this is a book and video. With this interactive lay-flat book, you open the page to the color mood you want to create, then pull out its palette, which comes with the book, lay it on the book, and mix the colors to match based on the color formula presented. And in the instructional video, John Pototschnik explains his system and exactly how to use it, creating various color moods with just 3 colors. And unlike standard mixing guides, this goes into depth on how to accomplish certain effects by shifting the dominant and subordinate colors. And you get to see John create some paintings using different moods, and you'll watch him do a complete painting start to finish using this system. Let John be your guide as he shows you how to mix pure, clean color, modify color, and expand your color options nearly to infinity by using just 3 primary colors plus white. He'll take you even further by showing you the same scene using multiple color wheels and palettes, so you can see for yourself how the primary colors you choose can completely change the look of the painting. The best part is, if you stick to John's system and techniques, there are no wrong answers. You'll have the freedom to choose what type of look, mood, or feeling you'd like to create by deciding on the colors and mixing the paint with precision. John will even show you how to create your own color wheels in order to have a permanent record of your mixes, so you can reproduce them time and again. Perfect for every level and type of paint artist, this video and book set is a must-have for your resource library. You'll want to refer to it again and again as you explore your newfound freedom with color. And your color will come alive like never before. In fact, this book is so important that it has forewords by artists James Gurney and Kevin McPherson. Stop packing around dozens of tubes just in case you need them. With just 3 colors plus white, you'll have every color you need right at the tip of your paintbrush. Get your video and book set before you start your next painting and discover just how easy capturing the desired mood can be by mixing the right color combinations. Order yours today. We have a feeling this is going to be a very popular item. The video is available on DVD for your library, or you can order it digitally to watch on your tablet, smartphone, laptop, desktop, or TV. The book will be shipped to your doorstep. Order your book and video library today.
Well, that is John Pototschnik, Unlimited Color with a Limited Palette. You can learn more about the full-length course, which is fabulous. You can learn about it at lilyartvideo.com. Remember, there's a special discount code for today only. It's in the comments section. Now, let's get right to our interview with John.
Hi, I'm John Pototschnik. I'm an artist working in the fine arts. I'm a landscape painter, and I work in oil. I worked as a freelance illustrator for 10 years in Dallas from 1972 to 1982. And then in the illustration field started changing about 1982 or so, maybe a little prior to that. I noticed a lot of illustrators leaving the field and getting into fine art. And I had always wanted to be in the fine art, but was told I'd never make a living at it. And so in 1982, I made the leap into painting. And the part I enjoy most about painting is the freedom that I have as a painter. In the illustration field, of course, you're always trying to work for an art director or meet a client's expectation. In the fine arts and in painting, I'm able to paint what I want in the way I want it. And I feel now that my true personality and my true temperament, all that is showing through my painting, and I think that's what I enjoy the most. What inspires me to keep painting after being in this business as a fine artist for more than 30 years, it's the whole idea of creating, trying new things, experimenting, seeing my work improve is huge. But, you know, I'm in the business to sell paintings. And so when someone enjoys my paintings and is willing to put the money out to purchase them, and I hear from them periodically and feel that appreciation and love for the work I do, that is very satisfying. And that really does help. That encouragement keeps me going. But I think there's just a need to create. There's something when one creates that there's a sense of accomplishment and satisfaction that oftentimes we don't get in other lines of work. And I think we're really blessed in that way to be an artist and to be able to create things and see a product that has come off of our hands. I'm best known for landscape painting, and I'm drawn to that subject matter because as a child, my grandparents lived on a farm. One set of my grandparents lived on a farm, and we visited there. I grew up in a fairly small Midwestern town. It was close to the country. I always liked the outdoors, enjoyed the farm, enjoyed the country, and so it is just a natural outgrowth of my childhood. I think I'm ending up painting my memories and all my experiences, a lot of my experiences growing up. I find peace in the country too. It's open and it's not congested, and you can feel the wind and the breeze and the smells and hear the bugs and all the animals. All that stuff appeals to me, and I like to be able to capture those kinds of moods and feelings in my work. The important thing for an artist is to paint what they're passionate about and what they know. If they love painting the figure and the challenge of it and the different moods that can be expressed through figurative painting, that's what they should be painting. It just happens in my life and because of my childhood that I mentioned earlier is that I'm drawn to the landscape. I'm drawn to all the moods of landscape. I love the outdoors, so that's why I paint the landscape. But not everybody should paint the landscape if they're not passionate about it. So I'd say paint your passion. Paint what you know. Don't paint a subject just because you think there's a market for it. I'd say certainly be honest with yourself. Paint what you know and what you love and what you're passionate about. There will be a market for it. My style of painting is sometimes hard to describe. An article was done on me several years ago, and they described my painting as naturalism, and I like that word a lot. Naturalism to me is I'm not trying to enhance necessarily or romanticize. Naturalism came about because of the classical movement, and they were saying that the classical elevated and idealized the subject. I try not to idealize the subject. However, I do clean things up a little bit to make it a little more pleasing. I use oil because it suits my temperament. I worked as an illustrator. I worked in watercolor and Dr. Martin dyes and acrylic, but oil painting is flexible. It doesn't dry as fast. Of course, watercolor doesn't either, but oil is more, I can manipulate it. I can put something down. If I don't like it, I can take it out. Take it all the way out, start over. So I just like the flexibility of it. I love the acrylic. When I use acrylic, after it dries, it changes color. It changes the value slightly. If I remember right, it dries slightly darker than when you put it down. So it was hard to match that color exactly once it was dried. Oil, I don't have that problem. It's just, it just suits me perfect. The most difficult thing about oil painting is painting. I'm more of a smooth painter. In other words, my surfaces are smooth and more brushed out. I appreciate the painters that use more textural quality to their oil painting and broader brush strokes and all that. It doesn't necessarily suit my temperament, so I struggle with that. But I would like to learn how to do that a little better, how to be a little more expressive with the paint. I love the paintings that when I have a vision in my mind as to the mood I want to create, that I'm able to accomplish that mood and really get the feel of what I had in my mind and capture nature as I feel it. When I can do that, I think that's a successful painting, and those, of course, are the standouts to me. I've seen some real development in my recent work, and they are receiving awards. I think one of the last paintings I completed that I was really proud of when I did it, and I thought it was special, but when it received the silver medal at the Oil Painters of America National Show, that kind of confirmed what I had been feeling, that it was a good painting. And so that one I'm very proud of. I have favorites for different reasons, but I would say this painting called Be Still My Soul, which recently won that silver medal, is at least it's on my mind right now, is one of my favorite paintings. My unique style is created by color because I think every individual has their own color sense. I think their personality and temperament lead them to choose certain colors. So that is certainly the case with me. And then limiting that palette, I think, has greatly helped me to use it in an effective way, because I don't have so many colors I have to concern myself with, and I have learned with a limited palette that I can create about any mood that I want in nature. To use a limited palette means obviously a small number of colors, tube colors that one would put on the palette. People have different ideas of what limited would mean. I mean, some would call it probably 10 colors limited. In fact, I've read that in places. They say I'll use a limited palette, but there's 10 colors on their palette. Mine is very strictly limited in that mine is usually just the 3 primaries plus white. Once in a while, I will add 1 or 2 other colors. But I would say for me, a limited palette is probably 5 or less colors. A limited palette, I think, has really helped harmonize my paintings and has given me a little more, believe it or not, a little more freedom to express myself as far as color goes. It simplifies my working methods. And I have learned that by being forced to use all of the color on the palette to mix certain colors, that the painting automatically ends up harmonious, and that is super important to me, that I have a harmonious painting and not some color that's stuck in there that doesn't relate with the others. So by using a limited palette, I'm forced to intermix everything, and therefore it ends up a much better painting. I enjoy the challenge of it, the effects that one can get and the surprises. It's just, it's never ending. And if one changes up the primaries, then you can start all over again, and it's just a whole new challenge and new experimentation and a new joy. So it's endless with me. I love the limited palette. I love the possibilities of it. I love the challenges of it. All that to me is fine. I seem to be able to mix every color that I need. So it just simplifies for me the whole working process. The hardest thing about mixing color with a limited palette, I think the tendency would be is we are trying to match exactly the color we're seeing. For instance, if we're painting out in landscape, out in nature, plein air, and we're trying after a certain green, and we may not be able to achieve that certain green with the particular colors we have selected for our palette. So I think getting beyond the fact that I've got to match exactly the color that I see is, I think, difficult part. Once you overcome that and just concern yourself with creating a harmonious painting and giving the effect or the impression of what you're seeing, it works great. I want this video to improve your skills, because I think I've put in as clear a way as I can the benefits of using a limited palette. So I would say that the great benefit is you need to just try it and work at it, and you will see that it's well worth it. Try these colors together and mix them. I mentioned at the beginning how much time I'd spent when I discovered using a limited palette, how much time I spent just mixing these colors together. It was like 2 weeks, hours and hours and hours every day just mixing color. And that's when the joy came in and I realized the possibilities of it. So I would encourage each of you students to do exactly the same thing. Mix the color and you'll learn and you'll see the benefits of it. I can teach it and I can tell you the benefits of it, but until you try it, and I've heard from many students I've taught over the years that say, my goodness, I'm glad you taught me what you did. It's really helped me. And I know it will help everyone that watches this video also, if you try it.
Well, that is John Pototschnik, and the video is called Unlimited Color with a Limited Palette. And you can learn more about the full-length video course at lilyartvideo.com. Remember, there's a special discount code for you today only in the comments section. And also want to tell you that we have a free video for you. It's called 97 Amazing Painting Secrets from the World's Best Artist. And you can get it for free, even though it's a $107 value, and it's 2 hours long. It's called 97tips.com. That's where you go, 97tips.com. Thank you for watching. I'm Eric Rhodes.
What if you could create any mood you imagine in your paintings and know exactly how to mix the colors to make it? You're about to see a revolutionary system that's going to open up the world of color and create nearly endless possibilities for you. With just 3 colors, you'll be able to create amazing color choices in order to achieve any mood or feeling you desire in your paintings. Maybe it's a warm, sunny day or a cool nighttime painting. Colors create emotions, and people respond better to emotional paintings. But this isn't just a course on color or color harmony. It's a system of mixing colors in a unique way, which will help you master color like never before, whether you're an old pro or completely new to painting. Presenting Paint Unlimited Color with a Limited Palette. How to paint hundreds of color schemes with just 3 colors with master artist John Pototschnik. And for the first time ever, this is a book and video. With this interactive lay-flat book, you open the page to the color mood you want to create, then pull out its palette, which comes with the book, lay it on the book, and mix the colors to match based on the color formula presented. And in the instructional video, John Pototschnik explains his system and exactly how to use it, creating various color moods with just 3 colors. And unlike standard mixing guides, this goes into depth on how to accomplish certain effects by shifting the dominant and subordinate colors. And you get to see John create some paintings using different moods, and you'll watch him do a complete painting start to finish using this system. Let John be your guide as he shows you how to mix pure, clean color, modify color, and expand your color options nearly to infinity by using just 3 primary colors plus white. He'll take you even further by showing you the same scene using multiple color wheels and palettes so you can see for yourself how the primary colors you choose can completely change the look of the painting. The best part is, if you stick to John's system and techniques, there are no wrong answers. You'll have the freedom to choose what type of look, mood, or feeling you'd like to create by deciding on the colors and mixing the paint with precision. John will even show you how to create your own color wheels in order to have a permanent record of your mixes, so you can reproduce them time and again. Perfect for every level and type of paint artist, this video and book set is a must-have for your resource library. You'll want to refer to it again and again as you explore your newfound freedom with color. And your color will come alive like never before. In fact, this book is so important that it has forewords by artists James Gurney and Kevin McPherson. Stop packing around dozens of tubes just in case you need them. With just 3 colors plus white, you'll have every color you need right at the tip of your paintbrush. Get your video and book set before you start your next painting and discover just how easy capturing the desired mood can be by mixing the right color combinations. Order yours today. We have a feeling this is going to be a very popular item. The video is available on DVD for your library, or you can order it digitally to watch on your tablet, smartphone, laptop, desktop, or TV. The book will be shipped to your doorstep. Order your book and video library today.